The world is saved. The living room's dark, save for light being cast from the big TV screen and the imminent sunrise that's teasing the one starry sky with whispers of morning.
Hey, George.
Hey, Lions, how's it going?
It's going, I don't want to say like 7 kinds of good, but like at least 3, right? I was terrified you were not going to get that at all.
Yep. No, I'm there with you.
Yeah. Everybody else is like, what are these assholes on about?
Ooh, first swear just right out of the gate, man. You know?
Well, you know, when you spend all day Bushidoing blades like I do, you just can't, screw around. You gotta like dive right in. Sledgehammer first.
You gotta dive on in. Whether it's like with your katana or with your wagas. Or no, they don't have a wagasashi. It's katana, broadsword.
There's a nodachi. That's the big one.
A nodachi. Yeah. But anyways, yeah.
So we played Bushido Blade, which is actually newer than I thought.
It came out in like 2018, right?
Yeah, it was like this morning.
You got a lot of playtime in.
Yeah, no, just very, you buy the digital download, it's on your console at midnight, right? And then you just...
really, it was just you having a fever dream. Like all of a sudden they see on the news, like you're just sitting there in like full traditional Japanese garb in the middle of like I-95 with, like your katana out.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a katana, but it's actually like a tree branch. No, it's 97 though. I mean, that's like, right? Like,
yeah,
that's nigh on into high school. Like,
I mean, the game's still old enough to drink though.
Oh yeah, no, certainly. But I think we're going to repeatedly see some weirdness from this time in history because 97 is late in the game for video games in general, but it's really early in the 3D era still. And so let me set the stage a little bit for Bushido Blade. Bushido Blade is a fighting game. It's not a standard fighting game. It's an arena fighting game. So there's like freedom of movement across multiple screens, semi-realistic damage. It's in 3D, right? And 3D fighting games aren't always... I mean, I think the newest Street Fighter has even gone back to 2D. Like, it's not 3D fighting games are not
well. D's gone back to 2D.
Yeah,
like the new whatever one.
There's just not a well accepted belief that 3D fighting games are even a good idea, and this was very early in that learning process. And also, it's made by SquareSoft, which does not have like a super illustrious fighting game lineage. So you have a fighting game made by a non-fighting game company in 3D that decided to embrace a ton of variations to the fighting game formula. And so, I'm going to save how I felt about it to the end, but like that is not a recipe for automatic success. Like if you were drawing up a business plan and you looked at that list of descriptors, you would not point to that and be like, winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Yeah, no, it's not something where you'd be like, hey, I've got a plus 20 to hit and, they've got a 20 armor class. So I'm rolling for ones. Like this is I have a plus 1 to hit and they have a 22 armor class. I am rolling for 20s.
Yeah. So I have nostalgia goggles for this game. This was definitely a game that Brian had and that him and I used to play together a lot. And I realized playing this game, like I've realized with some of the other fighting games we've played, fighting games are really designed to be cooperative experiences. And this game has a story mode, and we'll get into all that. But a lot of the stuff they added is in support of how do we make this a more engaging single player experience than like a Mortal Kombat or a Street Fighter, which is just punching the computer in the face with, a single move until it falls down because the computer doesn't get angry at you and throw the controller in the wall and then be like, I'm not playing with you anymore. Right. So
it's cheese fighting. And then the other, it's like, it's a legitimate tactic.
Exactly. So this doesn't lose the support that a 2-player experience would give it, but they did try to up that 1-player experience. That being said, all of my nostalgia goggles for this game are playing it 2-player, right? It's all just Brian and I wailing on each other. I'll give away one of the mechanics right now, which is this game has 1-hit kills. There's no health bar. And so if you're sitting side by side, cross-legged on the living room floor with your friend, and you're playing a fighting game where every match is like a grudge match in Super Smash Brothers. It's just like 1-hit kill, 1-hit kill, 1-hit kill, instant reload every single time. That is a slightly different experience than like a Mortal Kombat or a Street Fighter or whatever, which tosses you back to the character select screen and like makes you choose the level you want to play in again and makes you choose all that stuff again. Bushido Blade is just like murder, right? But that's the 2-player experience, not the single-player experience. So basically all of my nostalgia goggles are the murder with another human being, not really soaking in the story mode.
Well, and that's the thing is that, because I don't know a good place to fit it in. So in lieu of my nostalgia goggles, I will tell this story, which is, I sat down to play this game because we were recording a little bit later than we normally do because, I just had a lot of stuff going on. And I was like, I still think I have enough time to get in Bushido Blade. And you're like, there's a lot to this game. So, let's just punt it a little bit. So that way you can have some more time to like really sink your teeth into it. And I beat the story mode in about 5 minutes, And so I was like, I stopped and I looked at Megan and I was like, what? I've got to be missing something because there's no way. I mean, I think what I said to you is I was like, there's no way that Lions punted us recording this. I literally could have started the game while we were doing introductions. And by the time Lions got through his nostalgia goggles, have had the entire 1-player experience. Like, I've got to be missing something. And so then we sat there and talked about it for a little bit, and you unoccluded some of the more nuanced mechanics and things that might have gone over a less adroit person's head, like myself. Is that the nice way to say it?
That it is. And I think you are... I don't want to say like you, in my experience playing dozens and dozens of video games with you, is that like you put your head down and you just plow through a game, because you don't always do that, but sometimes you do that.
Yeah.
And this game is like a perfect storm of not made for you because there's very, very little that is conveyed about what you might want to prioritize in your life when you play this game, right? If you're playing 2-player, it's fairly straightforward. I'm trying to kill you, you're trying to kill me.
Yeah.
But when you go into the story mode, there's a lot of options, and the game doesn't even tell you that there's a lot of options. So the fact that you felt like you had seen everything and that the game actually still had a bunch of other stuff to offer is, I mean, it's questionable, right? Like it's understandable how not only is that the way the game kind of behaves, and we'll obviously pick it apart, but like that's also like running directly parallel to the way you approach some games, which is just like, well, I did everything the game asked me to do. Game just didn't ask me to do anything. So Now what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean, because it's just kind of like, it's like, basically the goal be like, because what they did was they set a goal that you could see, right? Like get through the story, right? Like you are now fighting this person, fight this person, now fight the next person, defeat these people. As far as you're concerned, as far as you're set up to the goals like defeat people, escape the training
Kage, the Assassin's Guild.
Yeah, the Assassin's Guild. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, so to escape the Assassin's Guild, right? And so like you walk up to the first guy, you hit triangle, killed him. Walk up to the second guy, hit triangle. I'm like, I am moving closer to my objective, Like,
man, I'm great at this.
And so like it's like walking through this, kind of tunnel where there are all of these, where what you don't know is that there are like these like pathways leading off of the tunnel that lead to like these beautiful gardens and like spectacular fireworks displays. But at the end of the tunnel is the thing that says goal, and you're like, I'm just going to keep moving towards this goal. And it's like, hey, you want to check out this other pathway? It's like, maybe, but the goal's right there. And being a little bit of an achiever, Actually, no, I'm a socializer killer. So, but anyways.
Well, and you just made
me a social killer.
Yeah, that's.
I only kill socially. I can control it. I can stop killing whenever I want.
I only kill socially and after breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And sometimes to prove a point.
No, you actually just made me think of this in a way that I hadn't framed it in my mind before, which I'm kind of proud of, is the idea that there is a somewhat clearly labeled goal on a fairly linear path from here to there, but there's all this crazy nonsense off on these side paths, and the crazy nonsense is really way more fleshed out than the clear path from here to there. You know what that sounds like? A JRPG. You know who made this fighting game? A JRPG company. Like, I never thought of it that way, but the fact that the primary stated objective is actually, 10% of the overall experience compared to all of those like side paths. Yeah, that's exactly how a lot of JRPGs are. And this game was made by one of the most famous JRPG companies on earth. So I don't know if that's necessarily an accident or if it's just so built into their DNA that like they couldn't even. They're like,
yeah, they were like, how else would you make?
Yeah, that's just how games are made.
Well, I think it may very well be, like they're just kind of like how, like they made Bushido Blade, and everybody's like, this is nothing like any other fighting game. Like, how else would you make a fighting game? Very much so, how like when, like DC makes a superhero movie and it's complete and utter garbage. Like, how else would you make a superhero movie? This is obviously how you do that.
Hey.
Yeah.
I need you to at least admit Wonder Woman is fantastic.
Wonder Woman is fantastic. Okay. I'm really, really hoping that, Wonder Woman is fantastic. And I'm hoping that they manage to somehow like create an alternate universe and like retcon her into it and then burn everything else to the ground. Everything else to the ground like Zod tried to burn those people before Superman snapped his neck. You know what? We don't need to get into it.
I would be totally fine if the third Wonder Woman movie... Because the second one, that story is already, it's a midquel, it's between movies. But if the third Wonder Woman movie is like, in the year 20XD6, some terrible thing happens to Earth that has these people as Batman and Superman, and then it explodes, but Wonder Woman survives and goes to this other Earth. Well, like that movie could be 30 minutes long, and I'd be like, good, here's my $18.
Well, because they already like have established that like there are multiple in like the DC comics. There's like multiple Earths, right? And the Flash can move fast enough to like move between dimensions. So like like there's some like horrible apocalypse, right? And then like the Flash just like snatches Wonder Woman, and they both bamf out because I don't got anything against the Flash. The Flash is okay.
Yeah, he was fine.
Yeah, he's fine. And then like they bamf out, and they're just kind of like the destroyer of the multiverse is coming. Like whatever. But anyways, that. But about Bushido Blade. See, that relates to Bushido
Wait, what are we talking about?
Blacked out there for a minute.
So this game has graphics, and we should talk about them. And I don't think it's unfair to say that this is an early, low-poly game. The graphics have aged horribly, but particularly the cutscenes. Because they try to render higher res figures during the cutscenes, and man, they just make the graphics in Final Fantasy VII look like the graphics in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like they're so uncanny, so everything looks like it's made out of clay and then coated in a thin layer of plastic. The eyes are nightmare fuel, the mouth movements are totally, because they didn't really have the money at this time to localized mouth movements, so the mouth it's like a Bruce Lee movie. It's just like the mouth is still moving for Japanese, but then they just dub over it. Like it's so. I mean, the graphics are terrible. Like they're really, really bad.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, and so one of the things though that I always try to be fair, and I execute it perfectly every time. So
So you don't try to be fair. You just always are fair.
well, I mean, I do work at it. I do try. It's just the difference is between you and me is I'm always successful.
You just bat 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, I work at it. It's hard work being this awesome. But so I was trying to say because the old N64, the N64 low poly stuff, I didn't find quite as grating as some of the low poly stuff we've seen on the PlayStation. Definitely not as grating as it was in this game. And I'm like, what is it that's bugging me so much? And it's the textures, like a lot of the Nintendo stuff was flat colors, and this was everything's textured. It all has painting on it, so it's not a brick wall, isn't they'll make it into a brick wall and it's just a painting of brick on a wall. And it's so dense that it makes it look gritty. And I think that was intentional. I think that they were like, we can do things in 3 dimensions now. Let's try to make this as real looking as humanly possible. But it doesn't come across as looking real. It comes across as looking cluttered, dirty, and visually unappealing.
Yeah, and this game suffers from basically every early PS1 game did that, right? Very few of them went for solid colors and gradients the way the N64 tended to do. 2, Square, at this time Squaresoft, but now Square Enix, they have always had an absolute rager for the best possible graphics quality they could squeeze out. And at the time, you could look at any game and be like, this is one of the best looking games that currently exists right now. Whatever the latest Square game was, it was probably one of the best looking games on that console at the time it was released. But that doesn't mean that all of those design decisions aged well, right?
Right.
And
exactly.
To in this game to have this fairly realistic setup and these fairly realistic mechanics, or more realistic than most fighting games certainly are. Things had to be textured, right? The stone has to look like stone. The bamboo has to look like bamboo. The brick has to look like brick. The construction barrier has to look like a construction barrier. I get why they wanted to do the things they did, but they're pushing everything to its absolute limits. And at the time, I'm sure everyone was like, whoa, yeah, it's kind of a blurry, pixelated mess, but wow, look at all the pixels in this pixelated mess.
All the dimensions. We have 50% more dimensions than we've ever had before. Our cup runneth over with dimensions. Now, you know what it is? This is the shag carpet of video game visuals, We're at the time, everybody was doing it, and this is really, really good shag carpet. This is the primo. You could spill, like that blue liquid that they always spill in commercials on it, and it and then you mop it up, and it would come right up like this. This is great shag carpet. But then when you purchase the game, 30 years later, you're like, yeah, we gotta tear out all of this shag carpet. This is definitely, I can tell you the year that this shag carpet was put in.
Yeah. Well, and the worst is the people who were alive at that time, like we were, who pretend, well, I never liked shag carpet. Shag carpet was just the worst, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I fully admit that these graphics, for the most part, are just eye bleach, right? They're just garbage. and here's the thing. I'm not as broken up about the low poly faces and the JPEG expressions and the everything is a texture that is, if you're more than a foot away from it, looks super muddy and pixelated. That actually doesn't bother me as much, because I feel like those were them trying to push the boundaries at the time. The things that I'm actually way more angry about and feel like I have righteous anger about is a lot of the characters, because they're dressed in either traditional or stylized traditional Japanese garb, they have flowy parts, right? Like big sleeves, or I don't know what you would call it, but the little, tunic that would hang down in between your legs, right? On a stereotypical sexy ninja kind of costume. I have no idea if there's any historical accuracy there or not, but you know what I mean, right? And
I think you lost historical accuracy at sexy ninja. I mean, I mean, I'm sure that there were ninjas and that there were some that were sexy, but I'm sure that no one trained to be a sexy ninja.
But I mean, I don't know if that's
Yes.
even loosely based on a real kind of clothing.
Oh, I do remember seeing something back in like the 1600s where there was a group of sexy ninjas.
There, yeah, see?
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember seeing something about that on Extra History. Hey, Extra History at us.
I remember seeing something about that on the History Channel right after aliens built the pyramids.
Hey, aliens.
So
That was
anyway,
a very visual gag.
it was. I don't know if everybody knows you had your hands up. I don't know if any of those clothes, other than like the kimono, have any historical accuracy, and certainly the skin tight costumes don't. But the billowy ones are just constantly clipping through everything. They clip through the person who's wearing them. They clip through the walls they're standing near. They clip through their opponent. They clip through themselves. Like sometimes they'll like double back because the wind effect goes totally bonkers. And that stuff I actually find way more offensive because that kind of miserably bad collision detection is funny when somebody's skirt is going bonkers, but that also means that the hitbox is garbage because they don't do good collision detection, right? And these things are different technologically, but there's a lot of overlap, right? If you have really crazy like clothing and hair physics where stuff is just clipping through solid objects all the time, that doesn't bode well for your collision detection for like, did my sword pass through your face? Yes. Did you survive? Yes. Did you survive the second time, even though they looked identical to the player? No. Why? Who knows? The collision detection is garbage, right? So like that actually to me is the part that is more egregious with the graphics is all of the textures and silly faces and impossible body shapes and stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, they were doing the best they could with the stuff at the time because they wanted to push boundaries. But the fact that that meant this unacceptable game-breaking trade-off in hitbox collision detection, that to me is like, nope, this far no farther. Like you made the wrong choice. You optimized for nightmare faces instead of making sure that when a sword passes through someone's neck they die. Like when the sword passes through their neck they should die every time.
Yes. Yeah, just like gamma radiation kills you every time, kills you. It doesn't make you into the Hulk sometimes, always. Yeah, but like, yeah, that was definitely, I mean, that was just, again, I remember at the time, like pretty much every game, had some kind of like weird thing where like stuff would clip through walls and things like that. One of the things I did not think that they did very well, and it just definitely is something that maybe could have gotten better if I had played hours and hours and hours and hours of it. But that being said, is I didn't feel that the game telegraphed very well. In the sense that, or let me phrase that, they didn't telegraph well enough to where I felt that I could do much about it because the controls are very laggy, and we'll get to that in controls. But basically, like, somebody would like move in to do something. I'm like, what's happening? What's going on? And then, they would swing at me and I'd block it. And I was like, oh, apparently that didn't register as a hit. Okay. And then they would do, again, like you said, like what seemed like the exact same move. And that time there would be that red spurt of blood and I'd be dead. And I was like, I don't know the difference between the two moves that you just did. And so because of that, it felt very random to me. And because of that, because it felt random, is I was just kind of like, okay, then I'm just going to do the move that has the highest chance of success, which was predominantly triangle.
Yeah, head chopping often is successful. But I'm with you that there's not really it's kind of like, oh, this coin is so much heavier on the head side that it comes up heads like 65% of the time instead of 50% of the time. I think it seems like it. Like I've flipped it like 10,000 times, and it seems like about 60 to 65% of the time it comes up heads, which is statistically improbable, right? But that's not how you want to be playing your fighting game. You want your fighting game to be like, well, when my sword goes through their neck, they die. If their sword goes through my heart, I die, right? And to feel fairly, and I know like we've talked a lot about like coyote physics and how sometimes the game will intentionally be broken to favor the player, and like I'm fine with all that. Like tie goes to the runner. Like I'm not objecting to that, but if uh if one person swings their sword and the other person blocks it, and then the first person swings their sword in an identical way and it hits and hurts them but doesn't kill them, and then swings their sword in an identical way and it hits and kills them, and you have those three experiences and there's no obvious difference between them, that is really problematic for any video game, but it's extra super problematic in a fighting game, right?
Right.
Because I mean, it's just like, I don't know, I have no information about how to respond. So like when they swing their sword, it's equally valid of a strategy to stand perfectly still and do nothing. It's equally valid of a strategy to hit the block button. It's equally valid of a strategy to try and pre-kill them before they kill me. Like all of these are met with roughly 50-50 success.
Yep.
Like that's not a satisfying feeling, particularly against the CPU, because it results in a lot of that was crap deaths. Whereas, you know, if your buddy's sitting next to you, you can at least like, you know, elbow them hard in the ribs, right? And then like you feel a sense of like camaraderie, like, yeah, we both know that was cheap, right? But when it's the CPU, you're just like, what the hell?
Yeah, what just happened, man? Yeah, no, and I think that so I would make the argument that in most fighting games, and probably in this one, is that one of the core aesthetics is fantasy. You know, it's the idea that it's like, you know, you're the fighter. You know, like you are a martial arts expert who is trained in the nodachi and the broadsword, and also, you know, like also a sledgehammer, which I thought was
I liked the sledgehammer.
Yeah, right. Because it's just kind of like, ooh, look at all these like highly trained weapons, and also a sledgehammer you bash people's skulls in. But yes, you are a highly trained martial artist, and I think that having clunky visuals and also kind of clunky controls, but especially like visuals that don't, like you said, like it's almost a 50-50 shot, even if it's 75-25, it means you don't feel like an adroit fighter. You feel like somebody who's, you know, got their eyes closed and says like, well, I'm just going to spin my arms like this. And if you hit me, then that's your fault, you know? Like, so I as I was playing it, and I put a fair amount of time in it, I never came up with a better, like, I was never able to act tactically, you know, to where like, oh, well, this person's moving in like this, so I want to kind of like move out to the side, and I want to like do this and do that, because it didn't really matter, because if he did what looked like thing A, B, and C, and then I countered, I was like, but when he does thing A, B, and C, the last time I did thing D, E, and F, and that countered it perfectly. But because the visuals are off, especially because of the way that the camera can potentially move, you know, it has a completely different result. And so instead of making me feel like an adroit member of this Assassin's Guild, it makes me feel incompetent, you know?
Yeah, no, it does.
I feel incompetent enough in the real world.
It does totally devolve into the, you know, you're just kicking your feet out and I'm just swinging my arms around, and we think we're having this super serious kung fu ninja fight, and everyone looking at us is like, look at those two kids roughhousing, right? And it feels totally random when the parents show up and yell at you. The kid who gets in more trouble feels totally random than the one who actually like instigated the clash. It's not broken to the point where it's unplayable, but the clunkiness of the combat, because specifically of the visuals, surfaces early enough in one player mode that you quickly are like, okay, I've seen what one player mode has to offer. I would like to play with another human now. And I have a little pet theory that the game's makers actually agree with me, because in favor of a cool thing they did with visuals, all of the characters, because there's six characters, I think, and then there's you can unlock the guy with the gun, because there's a guy with a gun.
Yes, I have a note about that. I was displeased with that fact.
But yeah, so you know, there's the however many normal characters there are, then gun guy, and in versus mode, all of the normal characters are wearing an alternate costume. The alternate costume, basically for every single character, is the vastly superior one, like where they're dressed more in like traditional Japanese garb, like some modern but normal like Japanese clothes, or like traditional like kimonos and stuff, and they look less like comic book characters and more like, oh, these are just normal people who might also be assassins. That's what makes them terrifying. Real assassins would not wear fancy clothes to declare to the world that they are assassins, right? So I think it's the developers are kind of pushing you toward versus mode by being like, hey, the costumes over here are so much cooler, and they do look a lot nicer. Like that whole mode is all the same environments, which are muddy textures but varied, right? There's a lot of environments.
Yes.
And then much better costumes on the player characters, which is nice. So they they're using the visuals to steer you toward the gameplay mode you should be spending your time in.
I did have a couple of positive things to say about visuals. One of them is the character models are very varied and enjoyable. Like they're not quite as like bananas varied as Street Fighter, where like they're not like Blanca's not human, right? I mean,
no, these are all regular people that could exist.
Like Zangief, I'd like to think of myself as being in pretty good shape, but I mean, like there's maybe 0.000 times 10 to the negative whatever, sixth percentage of people that are like look like Zangief, and that is Zangief.
Yeah.
So they all are humanoid. They're all human, but like the ninja like each person looks different enough that I didn't feel like I was just kind of, sorting through 15 different kinds of vanilla and there's one Neapolitan ice cream, and the person that grabs the Neapolitan ice cream is clearly the sociopath. So, I did enjoy that because it did feel like, and then the fact that, and we'll get into this more mechanics, but each of them had their own fighting style also fleshed out the fact that they were varied. That wasn't just like, oh, we're going to throw different color paint on this car like in Mortal Kombat, where it's like, well, everybody uppercuts, everybody has the same kick, there's just like 3 different special moves. It's like, no, they all fight differently, they all move differently, they all look very different, the styles are very interesting, they kind of speak to their character. So I thought the character models were actually very good.
Yeah, and not to go into mechanics deeply, but the character models also do communicate to you a little bit about how you can expect that person to handle, because like there's a couple women characters, they are shorter and lighter, and they don't function as well with the bigger, heavier weapons as like the bigger, stronger guy characters do. But their character models are also literally physically larger, right? Because if all of the men and women were exactly the same height and the men were stronger because they were men, like that would be a little more frustrating. But it's like, oh, these are smaller. There's a guy who's much younger. He's like high school age, and he also performs better with the lighter weapons because he is literally physically smaller, right? So I even though they don't really telegraph it as well as they probably could, they do communicate some information about how these characters will handle in their character models, right? Like big tall guy stronger than little short guy or little short woman. Like that's
right.
That's useful information in a game that has like semi-realistic physics and the worst hitbox in gaming.
And one of the other positive things that I thought was good was the character models are varied, and now's a good time to get into it. Because this is an arena fighting game, the backgrounds, the settings are incredibly varied and contiguous in a way that seems to build out like a very fleshed out world, So like, as opposed to being like, you are now fighting on the Bridge of Eternity, and you are now fighting over the Fields of Elysium, and all this sort of stuff, whatever, fighting games do. This game, like, it's like you are fighting in the gardens. You are now fighting in this other place. So and even like there's an area where there were like there was some bamboo, and like the environment can get in your way. So like literally you can jam out and then use the environment to assist you, which we could potentially touch on in mechanics. Probably won't get to it if I had to guess, but that being said, is that the background visuals were very, very different and created a very fleshed out world, which I thought was pretty good.
Well, and they try to tip you off, because one of the things this game suffers from is not telegraphing anything. So not just what works and what doesn't, but Also, you can like freely roam and explore the world and like move from area to area. And I mean, it has to load in the next area because it is a PS1
This
game.
game I think was set in like the 1600s. They didn't have the telegraph yet. That's the problem.
You're right. Sexy ninjas, yes. Telegraph, no.
Exactly, because this game cares about historical accuracy.
That's right. So you can like move from little area to area, but if you watch carefully, this is definitely true in the versus mode. I do not think this is true in the story mode, but in the versus mode, if you just continually do like rematch after rematch in the same area, the characters don't load into the same part of the map because each little space is actually fairly large. And the way they like show it off to you visually is they're like, okay, now you're going to load up here by the bamboo forest. Okay, now you're going to load over here down, on this lower part, over by like the big stone wall. Now you're going to load over here by the bridge. Now whatever, right? So it never loads you into an entirely different area, but it does load you all different parts around within that area. And I like that a lot because it creates a huge amount of variety, which is nice. And it also is telling you like, hey, maybe like look around a little, like go look at all these visuals. Hey, there's like a door over there. What happens if you go over near the door? Right. So they're trying to use the visuals to convey some of that information, but we keep dancing around the mechanics. I promise we'll get there. The last thing I want to say about the visuals, though, and if you have anything else, feel free to carry on. But the last thing I want to make sure I said is, in my notes, I started playing, and like 30 seconds in, I was just like, "Dat blood splash," because when you land a killing strike, there is no doubt, right? You absolutely know that you landed a killing strike. There's this huge blood spray. There's a little like electric like that happens along with it, right? It's just blood everywhere, and that visual happens only when a life is taken. No one ever survives the blood splash. Never, ever, ever. You never see blood except when someone dies, right?
Yeah.
When you, this is the part that I was excited that I recognized long after I had celebrated the blood splash. If you block, it makes a little green like flash. If you get hit and take damage, because like your arm can be crippled, your legs can be crippled, it's a little yellow flash. So it's green when you block, yellow when you took damage, red when you die. And I was like, oh,
interesting.
There's like a little stoplight thing. Like there's no way that's an accident. They absolutely did that on purpose.
Yeah, no, I like that. And unfortunately, I never got any limbs crippled or anything like that. Like I simply took lives. I crippled no one.
I marched ever onward.
I crippled no one. I either killed or was killed. Like I was going this apparently neck first into all of my opponents and, seeing what went in there.
So then did you not get to enjoy the persistent injuries? Because I think that's actually a cool visual detail.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so let's say I'm playing the game on story mode and I get my legs crippled and then I go on to die and I say I want a rematch. In the next rematch, I will have bloody bandages on my legs. And like if the way I died was that they chopped me in the head, then I'll have a bloody bandage on my head. If I got hit in the arm, I'll have bloody bandage on my arm. And because you can...
I did have that.
Yeah, because you can continue infinitely, which is nice. Honestly, I love that they don't even bother with any nonsense. It's just infinite continues. You can get to the end of the game with like bloody bandages on your legs and bloody bandages on your arms and bloody bandage on your head. And it's like kind of a neat... Like, we're recognizing that, technically you died and the story mode should have ended right there, but that wouldn't be a very fun video game. But, like, we're going to remind you that you died.
Interesting. Because I realized now that I saw that because one of the characters that I was playing, when I was playing as her, she did have a bandage over one eye, but I just thought that was the character model. I thought that was, like, her costume because I was like, oh, yeah, like, that's fine. She's got something over one eye. It's not until you said that where I was like, wait, I remember at one point one of the other characters I had also had a thing over one eye at one point. I was like, that's weird that they did that with two characters. And then I just moved on with life and didn't think about it again. And so, okay, theory time. So you get injured and then you die. The injury persists, but your death does not. So do they have some kind of like Lazarus pit that they're tossing you into? It's like bringing you, but it is forcibly putting your soul back in your body. However, like your body is still damaged? Like, or is this like kind of, oh no, or is it like it's Game of Thrones magic? That's what it is, man. It's like when the sun god brings back what's his name?
Yeah, nobody cares because he was kind of like an arrogant dick.
Yeah, he was. But or worse, it's like the magic that brought back Clegane,
Oh yeah. No, that was like evil science. That was weird science.
Hey,
but not sexy kind.
There's no such thing as evil science, only evil people who do evil science.
That's a good clarification. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't want to just keep crapping on the hitbox and the muddy visuals. I think I've hit the end of my notes. Do you have anything else for visuals?
No, actually, and interestingly, during the entire time we were every time you were talking about the visuals, I was actually doing a commentary on the music and audio because as I was as vocal and as full of sound and life as the audio was, because the silence was deafening, man.
But how excited, like, because I remember this game being silent, so it's just like it's another way that they try and encourage the realism. There's no music, right? There's no weird, obnoxious ambient noises. Like everything sounds like you are in a bamboo forest fighting for your life against other assassins, right? It's a fairly realistic setting that they're going for. And I wrote down in my notes, I was like, no music, kind of weird, but I like it. And then literally I got to the end of that sentence and I was like, this will be George's favorite game. He has the ultimate excuse for having nothing to say about the audio.
Nothing at all. Yes. No, I did like that. Like literally, my note is, what does it say exactly? It's like oppressive lack of music.
It's weird by video game standards, but it does fit what they're going for.
It does. And I think that this game is like by definition, just like, I think that probably the designers were, like, hey, so we're going to try this weird thing. And this other weird thing, let's just throw it all at the wall. Let's just try all the weird things, let's try them all at once. So because, any good scientist can tell you having multiple variables all at the same time is absolutely the way to do a good science experiment. I mean,
that's just evil science. It's obvious.
Exactly. Yeah. That's just all science. That's lawful, good, true, neutral science, chaotic evil science. And all this. I'm just picturing the Joker in a lab coat, but that's not the point. The point is that no. So I think that you can make a case either way, and I do think that it is a preference thing because I think that like the lack of music is very real because most people, unlike myself, don't have a soundtrack running for their entire lives. That being said, though, is I think that the purpose of music in most places is to augment the feeling and help you immerse in the experience, right? So the idea is that, like, I am not fighting for my life in a bamboo field. My avatar is. So the music is made to help me feel that, like, kind of intensity. Like if it's supposed to be a strenuous time, then the music kind of like makes your heart pump a little bit faster and puts you in like a more strained place. If it's supposed to be kind of like a nice, calming, relaxing beach, that has calming, relaxing beach music and so on and so forth. So normally when I see like the use of lack of music is it is supposed to be kind of uncanny,
Yeah.
And I'm not, and so like I said, like it is a distinct choice, and you can definitely make a case for, well, there isn't music, so why would there be? So I definitely would compliment them for trying it. I just think for me that like it kind of pulled me out of the experience a little bit because then all I heard was just, pitter patter, and like it didn't. It felt to me uncanny,
So here's I agree with you, but for a slightly like a specific reason to this game, which is I think the artistic no music, right, like Kubrick 2001 style is often the right thing to do, right? When that particular brush is deployed correctly, you get the scene where Tetsuo goes into space to destroy the laser and all of the sound drops out. No music, no explosions, no people yelling. It's just this visual symphony of what your brain interprets as the sound of a space station exploding, but there's actually no sound at all in that scene, right? And it's just an amazing scene. And they do the same kind of thing in 2001, and lots of other well-made space movies, deploy that trick, because we're used to, like, Star Trek and Star Wars, which you hear the explosions, you hear the phaser fire, right? And like, that's fine. I don't think it's bad that those things aren't realistic, because that's not what they're going for. And when you do pull out that realistic card, it can be very cool. Here's why it annoys me in this game, because they choose to do the no music, which I like. I actually think it fits the theme and the tone really, really well. What would have maybe been nice is if they then said, okay, sound engineers, we're going to have all this storage space on this CD for CD quality audio that we're not using on the soundtrack, and you all don't have to write any music. So instead, we're going to have you make like 10 different weapons colliding noises, right? And those noises will give you lots of information, and they'll tell you if you had like a really good block or like a kind of crappy block, or if you have a big heavy weapon with a wooden handle that hits against a metal weapon, it'll sound different than another big heavy wooden handled weapon, right? Like, they could have done all of these things. They could have had like way more vocalizations, right? It's like a Super Smash Brothers 64 level of vocalizations, where it's just like the women both sound like Kirby. It's just like and like the guys are all like and it's just the same like two noises per character, like two vocal grunts, and that's why it bothers me, because they took away the music in its entirety, right? The little opening cinematic and the little closing cinematic, if you get to the end of the story mode, those have music, but none of the fights have any music, which I think is absolutely on point for the tone. But then to not redirect all of the remaining audio power that your team and the hardware would afford you, and to use that to enhance the gameplay, is just a startling lost opportunity, right? Even if the battle system is relatively simple and they're like, well, we don't have 20 different kinds of collision detection. Hell, we don't have one kind of collision detection. They still could have done like, okay, there's 4 different weapons hitting each other noises, but they all mean the same thing, right? Or they're just drawn randomly, so it doesn't give you any extra information, but it just makes the world feel a little more rich, right? But or there's lots of vocalizations, right? There's lots of dialogue and lots of like, grunts of exertion from the different characters, but they didn't do any of that. Like, why would you not notice when you're playing this game, like, oh, there's this one grunt of exertion that we hear like over and over and over. We got all this space on the CD, and we got all these sound engineers who aren't doing anything because this game has no music. Why don't we like put them to work?
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I think that they could have done a lot more with the sound that they had that they didn't have. I think that was definitely a missed opportunity, because I think that it really could have fleshed out the world and made it a lot more real if like each person like had all of their own voice lines. And I think especially because you can change weapons, to like make basically make the like when you're wielding the rapier kind of more of a ha, and then like when you're wielding the sledgehammer, making it more of like a grunt, like to kind of, 'cause you're like hefting this heavy item, I think that definitely could have fleshed out the world a lot more. But yeah, basically the sound is very flat, and it doesn't, and as you touch on, it doesn't service gameplay, there's at no point where like the sound is giving you information. And I think that, coupled with the fact that the visuals aren't giving you a whole lot of information, means that you're not getting a whole lot of information about what's going on. Because that's the thing, is that there is a lot going on under the hood. It's just none of it's telegraphed. Again, for historical realism, but it does kind of eventually get a little old.
Well, and to a point, it's like, well, they could have made the fidelity, orally a little higher. Sorry, orally a little bit higher by having more.
You nerd.
Yes, I'm.
You oral nerd.
I'm alone in this.
I
Apparently,
can't believe you orally corrected yourself about orally.
Yeah, no, get off this nostalgic video game podcast, you cool kid. What are you doing here?
Sorry, the audience can't see it, but I'm wearing sunglasses and smoking right now.
Yes, on your skateboard, in your leather jacket, with your slick back hair. Anyway, they had
I don't have hair.
slick back beard with.
Oh, there's a visual.
With
Are you gonna make this point already? My God,
I'm trying.
This better be worth it, man. We've been keeping them going for a
I'm
while.
trying
It's better
so
be the most
hard.
smart thing anybody's ever said ever.
Well, I mean, I would have told you.
Oh,
No, but
man,
like
now we all missed out.
they had the power, right? This is not a limitation of ability or resources or hardware, and to have not capitalized on it fully is what really gets me, because there is a little bit of this, right? Like swords make like metal swooshy noises, and the sledgehammer makes more of like a deep like whoosh, and then the what do you call it? Is it the naginata? It's like the big spear.
yeah.
The big
That's not it. But I know.
yeah,
what you're talking
the
about.
big spear thing with it's like a thing. It's like a big spear thing. That makes like a sort of deeper metally noise, right? So like they obviously thought about, oh, these things should sound a little bit different when they move because they're very different weapons, but then they did like the minimum amount of work to deliver on that idea. Like, oh, well, the sledgehammer sounds different than the rapier, and it's like, yeah. And like, what does that information give me? Like, do they sound really different? It's like, no, they just sound a little different. Oh, but like in a way that like supports the gameplay, right? No. It's like, oh, okay. Did everybody just like want to take an early lunch and then miss their bus back to the office? Like, what happened there?
So I think I know you didn't really watch a whole lot of Parks and Recreation. Did you ever see the episode where they go to see the animal control agency?
Negative.
So basically, they go to visit where animal control, like the Department of Animal Control, and they are all stoners, you know, like they are, like, you know, and they, to be fair, the actors do a really amazing job, because like some people are always like, what, you know, whatever, but like they do a great job of like, you know, they literally at one point there's like I think a possum or a raccoon like in the area, right, and they go like, oh yeah, you know, we got a really bad, you know, vermin problem. We keep calling animal control, but you know, nobody picks up the phone. And it's like, you're the people that you would call, you know? So maybe that was like the sound team, you know, like they just assumed that they were like in this like sound studio, like doing like all sorts of stuff. And then, you know, like they were like, all righty, man, time to ship this. And they open it up and this giant cloud of like, you know, smoke just comes billowing out. And they're like, what have you guys been doing? It's like, oh man, just, you know, we've been grooving on some tunes. And it's like, for the video game, right? Oh, the what, man? Dude, you gotta relax, you know? And then they're like, oh, we gotta do something. I don't know, 5 generic noises, just ship it. It's gotta go.
Yeah. And I think I find it particularly egregious because it's a lost opportunity, but then that egregiousness is taken to a whole other level because it's Square. Like, it's Square, man. Like, Squaresoft does not phone in most things that they do, right? And so when you're used to dealing with a production company and a development shop that like pretty consistently knocks it out of the park, and so when they do fall, that fall from grace is from a really high up cloud, you know? And yeah, it's from a high up cloud, and then they fall through a squall. Those are Final Fantasy jokes.
Oh.
So
nice.
You're just like, I don't care.
Yeah, I thought it was a pot joke because, you know, they were like on a high up cloud.
Yeah. No. Well, it could be both, and then it's an even smarter joke. But that's part of, like, because so much of my childhood was owned by Square, like that's why it's just that the insult to injury is just like, oh man, you all had a great opportunity here. And I know you know better. Like, you of all people, I know I trusted you, man. Like, I trusted you.
But with all that said, mechanics, gameplay?
Yeah, I mean, can we... The very first thing we have to talk about is how you move in this world, and specifically jumping. Do you want to describe for people how you jump in this game?
I will let you describe how we jump, because if not for you, I would not have known that one could jump. So because I literally, you know, because one of the things you had said to me is you're like, oh man, there's just these huge worlds that you can explore. I'm like, I can shuffle step around. You're like, well, I mean, you hit L1 to disengage and run around, which I cannot imagine how infuriating that would have been in a versus match when you're just trying to piss off the guy that you're playing with. Like, that must have been obnoxious. But it's R1. Right?
Yeah, no, you can't remember because it's the worst kind of button combination. And this is something that obviously when they went to a controller, you know, Super Nintendo controller had 2 whole less buttons than a PlayStation controller. So when they added on those 2 extra buttons, they were like, well, we got to do something with all of these. What are we going to do with all these buttons? Let's make needlessly complicated inputs. So the way you jump is not R2 plus R1. It's R2 and then immediately R1, right? So you don't do like one button, then the second button. It's like one and, right? And it's just, think about every modern game you've ever played. How many of them make you do controller inputs like that? I bet it's close to, if not exactly 0, because that is a horrible way to input commands onto a controller. It's just, it's clunky, it's awkward, it is not discoverable because you're never going to just do that. And even in a fighting game where you have to do things like full circle, back, forward, A, right? Like where that's like a normal thing. Those are like true points on the directional pad, right? Like you're going through your points of the compass. To do that same kind of quick sequence of movements between shoulder buttons, not even face buttons, but shoulder buttons, is like unheard of. And I hate to do this because someone's going to make me look like a total moron, but please, if anybody can give me an example of a well-regarded modern game made in the last 10 years, a well-regarded modern game that uses these kinds of controls that isn't like Guitar Hero, I would really like to hear it, because I literally cannot think of any other game where you have to do this sort of like slide off of one button onto another to complete a single action, right? Like in Mega Man X, if you want to like jump and fire at the same time, you do that thing with your thumb where you use like the pad of your thumb for one button and the joint of your thumb for the other button. But it's not jump and shoot, it's jumping and shooting. If every time you jumped, you had to do that pad of the thumb thing, it'd be terrible. Like it'd be totally untenable. And guess what? Jumping in this game is horrible because of the way you do it. Why couldn't it just be one button? Why not just R2? Yeah. Nothing wrong with R2. Fine.
Nope. Especially when followed with D2. Now, actually, you asked for a well-regarded game, a well-regarded modern game that did that, and Luigi's Mansion. I am kidding, because Luigi's Mansion is not well-regarded. Boom! Thought we were done with Luigi's Mansion, Burns. Nah, man. We're never done with Luigi's Mansion, Burns, because f*** that game for no reason whatsoever.
I always, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I know you don't listen to a ton of podcasts, which is fine, but I always wonder, like, do people believe that those messages go out to real individuals, or do they just think we're like friendless losers who are like pretending we have like a secret message we're sending out to people? They're like, nah, there's no way these guys have friends. Like, there's just no way.
Well, I mean, at this point, like originally I was crapping all over Luigi's Mansion, to be vindictive. Now it's become like something where it's almost like an appeal to a tradition where it's just kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't care for Luigi's Mansion now, just simply because I've decided that I don't.
Do you mean like a Hatfields versus the McCoys? Like, it's just like, well, we've just been feuding with Luigi's Mansion for generations.
Yeah, and because of the anchoring and backfire effect, because of both of those logical fallacies, you'd be hard pressed to change my mind at this point. But that is banana pants ridiculous. So I do have here. One guy has a gun. I do want to just this is really petty, but I just really want to make sure I get it in here because okay. Actually, no. Let's ease into this. Shh, no. Let's all just calm down. So let's talk about one hit kills, right? So I think that is a very interesting choice because again, it is very realistic, right? Like, I mean, like, there, and it's not necessarily a bad choice. Like, for example, one of the things I always think is very interesting in like games like Dungeons and Dragons, right, is that, you know, and some games tried to, like, I actually played a game that didn't do this, which was, you know, in Dungeons and Dragons, you hit as hard when you've got full hit points as you do when you got one hit point, you know?
Yeah, there's no depletion of ability.
Correct. Whereas most humans, when I have one hit point left and I am just clinging barely to the threads of life, I am not going to lay you out quite as much as I did when I was like full rested and I had my Wheaties that morning. That being said, I did play a game at one point where they did account for that. They were like, you know, I think, yeah, remember that game?
Yeah, I remember it being frustrating because eventually you just fell into this death spiral where it was like, oh, yes, I'm bleeding out, and so I'm just eventually going to die, and now I have to watch my character die slowly.
Exactly, because the thing is that, you know, when it's the all is lost moment, when you're really just have like so little life left, like that's when you want to be hitting the hardest, because that makes the best story, you know, because it's like, there I was with one hit point left, beset by denizens of hell on all sides, and then I, you know, like rolled 2 criticals and dealt 3 hit points of damage because, again, you know, no, that's not fun. So this game does go for realism, right? And at first I was immediately I was like, oh, this is the 5 rings, because, you know, you go in there and you're like, there is no, you know, oh man, like I really took it on the chin for a while, but then I made this stellar comeback. Like, you can't do any of that. But then when you said to me that you're like, oh man, it's perfect for grudge matches, right? I was like, okay, now that is interesting, because what you said specifically was, if you try to do something, you know, really creative or aggressive, and you fail, and then the other person capitalizes on it, that's it. And then that, coupled with a fast cycle time, can actually make it good and interesting.
And the cycle time in versus mode, we should say, is basically instant.
Correct. And that's important. It was more frustrating when I was going through story mode, and the cycle time wasn't as quick, because, you know, like, you have to die, and then you have to go through continue, and then you have to go through their animation again, and but so initially I had this as a note of like, you know, no, seriously, what is with this one hit one kill stuff? But then, like, you swayed me, and I'm like, yes. Okay, this isn't inherently bad. I still don't care for it, just because I like the idea of, like, you know, like, you take it on the chin, like who doesn't like, you know, in Smash Brothers, when you're at like 175% for like a full minute while you're just slowly working the other person up, and then you knock them off of the level, you know, like that's satisfying. But that being said, I do think that this has its place, and I think in versus mode they do the correct things mechanically to backfill to make it usable. I think in story mode it falls flat, but again, I don't think they really ever wanted you to play story mode.
No, not a lot anyway. And I think they wanted, in a world where the hitbox is not just fundamentally broken, right? I mean,
in a world where the hitbox is not fundamentally broken,
one rabbit.
What?
Exactly. Nobody saw that non sequitur coming, so now they're just like, is there an entire genre of action movies I know nothing about?
No, but if they'd watched our Jumping Flash episode, then they would have gotten it.
Also, you don't really watch audio podcasts typically, but anyway, well, we are on YouTube, so you could stare at us in the cover art for 90 minutes if you were truly bored. But you could also just listen and get more or less the same experience. So if you've been doing the watching, I recommend trying just the listening. Unlike Bushido Blade, there's audio the whole time.
Well,
so I think if the hitbox was not just, I mean, bad, it's bad, right? It's bad. Then the damage mechanic, because you can have one of your arms crippled, right? And then you don't use both arms to hold two-handed weapons. You can have your legs crippled, which prevents you from running at all, or like quick dashing, you know, side to side or forward and back. And then I guess that's it. I guess there's legs, arm, and then anything else is a death shot. But if those hitboxes were more reliable, where you either reliably blocked, reliably got a kill shot, or reliably got a crippling shot, then it wouldn't feel like there's quite as much randomness, right? So the cycle time in story mode would be a little bit more forgivable because when you died, it wouldn't always feel like, well, God just plays dice with the universe. Right? You would be like, oh, I screwed up, or they got me, or I tried something silly and it didn't quite work out. But because that's not the case, the cycle time in the story mode feels unacceptably long because you're just like, I died and I don't really know if it was my fault or if the game is just broken. And now I can't rush in and stab this guy to death because of the dishonor mechanic that's never conveyed to the user and you just have to know about. Whereas in versus mode, there's no story and there's no dishonor mechanic, so you just throw crap at the wall and see what sticks, and then if it doesn't work out, you just boom, rematch, and you're back at it. The level never unloads. The characters just pop right back to reality. So it's the cycle time is designed for the versus mode, and then there's just also unfortunately a story mode, and they didn't think about how the cycle time behaves in that mode.
And then so just to touch on the thing I was talking about before. So there's a guy with a gun. So
yes, there is.
When you have a system that is one hit, one kill, I swear to God, I thought I was getting pranked. Like, I mean, because like I'm playing this game and I'm like, oh, well, one hit, one kill. And like the hitbox is a little clunky and, like, all right, all this sort of stuff. And this guy like comes in with a gun and like, okay. And then he just shot and killed me. And so right as it happened, like, this is all happening in slow motion for me as I'm like reeling emotionally from like this series of events. And like, I'm sitting there like, I'm like, it's has to be like a set piece, like there's no way you win. And then they're like, continue. And I was like, I guess. And they put me up again and he got shot again. And I was like, oh, apparently I have to like actively deal with this because I literally brought a sword to a gunfight, And so then the thing happened that put me over the edge where I was like, no, this far, no further, which was I swung down. I took my, I just immediately ran in and I brought down my katana, like the forceful smiting of the heavens upon his head. And using his gun, he blocked me. And then I got upset because I was like, I'm going to need you to take a minute and explain to me exactly what the hell just happened here. And then he shot me again, which kind of bummed me out. Because,
well, what the problem is in that story, you were the villain. He's the hero, which is why he was able to block your sword with his like Walther or whatever. Oh no, it's it's like that German handgun that like the villains in old movies always have, like the with the thin black barrel. It's a super stereotypical kind of handgun for a villain to use, but
right, it's a Malawan, right?
Did you just make that up? That sounds made up.
No, man. Malawan is the 100% manufacturer of all elemental-based weapons in Borderlands.
Then yes.
Yeah, it's a Malawan. It's either Malawan or Doll, man.
Calling it made up was not totally off base.
All words are made up.
Yes, everything. It's all hard determinism.
It's hard determinism all the way down.
So yeah, in his story, you were just the villain, which is why he's Indiana Jones and you're the moron in the market with the saber who's all like, ooh, look at me, I've got a saber. And then he just shoots you because he has a cold.
Yeah. A Colt 45?
Cold, but yes.
Oh. Maybe. Yeah, anyways.
Poor Kane.
Oh, this is true. But yeah, so... no, this is true. Yeah, so yeah, I needed to share my story of just being completely dumbfounded when because I really do feel that cinematically when he blocked, my character just full on like dumbfoundedly was staring at him, dropped his sword and guard, and then got shot. And I was like, no, that was fair because I was just like, what just happened? All that being said, I think that for me, and I don't know if this is just me being frustrated or what, but I felt that the responsiveness of the controls was really slow.
They're mushy. They're really mushy.
Like Castlevania slow. Like there was almost I almost felt like there may have been like a deliberate delay between like when you push a button and when it takes a minute for your whip to fire up.
I agree.
It's not quite that long, but it feels pretty bad.
Well, I agree with what you're saying in principle, like the way it impacts the experience. My disagreement is that it feels mushy to me, like the way a sloth in a cartoon moves, where everything is just impossibly slow, right? Because Castlevania has a delay, but then once the thing happens, it is instantaneous, right? It's super fast after the delay, but there's a period of nothingness and then a period of instantaneous movement, whereas this feels just more like, all right, I'm gonna swing this sword at you and I'm gonna chop you so hard.
No.
Yeah, that's the feeling I get from it, but the end result we do agree on, which is just you push a button and then nothing happens.
Yeah, which is again in there are some games where you can have that kind of delay, but I think second maybe to bullet hell games, fighting games are ones where you really need to have those like twitch reflexes, to where like it needs to be very responsive. That being said, one thing I do want to say that I really, really want to make sure that we touch on is the variability of the combat. If you can get the hitbox together and get the slow things to actually react, and if you get past all that, there is a wide variation in combat types and styles. Because each character has their own style. Each weapon they can equip then has a style associated with that, and then there's two different forms for each person, where there's like a high and low, or there may be three.
Yeah, there's high. You start in medium, and then you can go up one or down one.
Okay, I think I only played with the going up one, but yeah. So I mean, like that is awesome if you can ever get it to work. But like the fact that they did that is really cool.
Yeah, and you can tell so that there's a thing called like rock, paper, scissors gameplay, right? Where it's like this thing beats that thing and that thing beats this other thing, right? And so like that's a really well understood framework in game design is, this is best against that, that's best against this other thing. And you can do, many iterations of that. And I think that's what they were hoping for, right? It's like, high of this weapon is best against low of this other weapon. So like if you, I'm just going to make crap up now. If you have the sledgehammer and they have the rapier and they go into the low stance, you go into the high stance and you cave their skull in one swing, right? Like I think that's what they were going for, because the high, medium, and low are dramatically different, because then you have triangle is your high attack, circle is your medium attack, and square or X is your low attack, and then square is block, but it doesn't seem to do anything. And each of these stances has three very different versions, or I should say there's three based on each stance, very different versions of each attack. And so it really feels like they're trying to get you to execute on that and be like, oh, okay, they've dropped their guard, which means if I come in with a straight thrust, they're going to be able to block it really easy with a little parry. But if I come in overhead, I'll have the advantage, but they might stab me through the stomach, right? So it's a sure kill if I hit them, but it's risky if they attack first. And like, but none, like I'm speculating about all of that because none of it feels like that's actually what happened. Sometimes something kills them, and then sometimes it doesn't, and then sometimes it does again, and then it doesn't for like days and days of playing. So you stop doing it, and then it's just like you try other random things, and then they work, and then sometimes they don't. Like there just isn't enough consistency in the hitbox to let you start to work out those patterns. So
right,
again, huge lost opportunity, right? Like, oh, they clearly thought about this kind of rock, paper, scissors, sledgehammer beats rapier sort of thing. And then the execution is just terrible, just terrible.
Yes. No, it instead of being like a well-honed, rock, paper, scissors match where, like somebody plays rock and somebody plays scissors, it's instead like the guy who pulled scissors on me in the parking lot of the rock, paper, scissors contest and stabbed me in the leg and threw, like it's it's one of those things where, they again, really, really great idea. Right. And very, I feel like this is one of those things. I say this a fair amount at work where it's just like, that is when somebody says like, oh man, we need to do like X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, an X, Y, and Z. I'm sitting there thinking it. I'm just like, well, that's about $50,000 and about 100 to 200 man hours. Like we should do that. And I'm like, really? That's ambitious, and that's like your nice way of saying like that's completely unrealistic and never going to happen. Like so. I feel like a lot of this game, like especially like where they're like, all right, we're gonna have 7 different fighters. Okay, no, that's cool, and we're gonna have 7 different weapons. All right, well, okay, so that means you now have to create 49 different fighting styles. Well, no, because there's gonna be a high, medium, and low for each one. So you then need to create 100 and basically 150 fighting styles. It's like, well. Yeah, it's like, so that means that what you're telling me is that, and each one has a high, medium, and low thing, right? Yes. So that means I have to create 450 different animations, and each one has to be like perfect. Like, where's your hitbox? Where's this? Where's that? So it's no wonder the hitbox is fuzzy as hell. I mean, like most of the time they're just kind of like, okay, you've got 7 fighters. Each of them can do a high, medium, and low. A lot of the times they're exactly the same. So it's like, well, we can spend a lot of time on hitbox. Instead, like they said, well, what if instead of the normal 100 animations, we did 450? It's like, no, I can't do that. In fact, I'm going to have to pull the entire sound team just to get up to 300.
No music at all in this game, but the hitbox is really good.
I didn't say that, That's what they did. That's what happened, is that basically they pulled the entire team into making all of these animations that they had to make for the scope of this game. And then they're like, oh my God, we haven't even programmed the hitbox. Pull the sound team. So the sound team programmed the hitbox. And then like, the sound team's, 17-year-old, about to graduate high school, like, son or daughter came in and was like, and he was just like, hey, remember that like one game I made a while ago? Just redo this. This is an internship. You're lucky. Do this,
Is it Billy Madison when he gives the rousing speech and it's like total. Yeah. So
where it's like that's the dumbest thing anybody has ever said. Yeah. We are all dumber for having heard it.
I award you no points and may God have mercy on your soul. Like I'm imagining the composer who's a brilliant musician and always identifies with the theme and tone of a game, connecting the music to it in a way that moves players, being brought in to do the hitbox programming, and it turns over the code is like, it turns out this was exactly like writing music. I could feel all of my skills as a composer just coming through when I had to program the hitbox, and then the playtester sitting down with their original PlayStation controllers with no analog sticks and just being like, yeah, it turns out it's nothing like writing music. It's not at all. So now our game has no hitbox and no music. So artistic choice on the music, I guess, but artistic choice on no hitbox? I feel like people are going to expect a functioning hitbox.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of spending the time, making a really functioning hitbox, they just spent 5 days trying out on Yayo and just like did their best. Okay. So we've spent a lot of time crapping on the hitbox. But the more we crap on it, the more sure I am that fixing that one thing would overhaul the game completely, because there are so many interesting ideas, right? The fact that you can run away from your opponent and literally like run to a different screen, and you can jump and climb, and you can like cripple them, and like there's spots with like low lying evils, like little recesses, and you can bring an opponent in there and then cripple them, and then you can jump out, and then they're trapped, right? You have to eventually murder them because otherwise the game won't progress. But like they thought of a lot of interesting things, and the artistic choice with the no music and one hit kills, and the varied weapons and varied the high, medium, low stance thing that mixes up the combat style. Like, but like the hitbox, dude, like if none of this matters. Like that is the linchpin of a fighting game, is when does the button press result in them dying or me not dying in a way that makes the game enjoyable? Like if that question doesn't have a good answer, then you don't have a good fighting game. Like you just don't, no matter how many other aspirational things you try.
before we get to what was basically just given away as my conclusion, uh, I, I do I do feel like I need to throw a shout out to one of the craziest experiments, because this game has some other like alternate modes, and that's neither here nor there. One of them is a POV mode. Did you mess with that at all?
I didn't.
Okay.
Um,
So it's
I didn't.
exactly what it sounds like. So imagine playing this game from, Doom Guy's perspective.
hmm
So your weapon is like out in front of you, which means it's like right in the middle of the screen, depending on what weapon you're using. And if you like get knocked on your back, like the camera is now showing you the sky because it's point of view mode. If you are on your back and you roll, half the time you see the ground because you're facing straight down. Like it is a literal, like as if your head does not turn and it is fixed forward, totally strict point of view mode. And I think it's interesting in this, fairly realistic compared to other fighting games, this fairly realistic world where they wanted to like make it feel more intense to let you play in this first person perspective where they're coming right at you with their sledgehammer or their sword or their whatever. The interactions between you and the outside world are made so much harder because of how clunky the hitbox is that they literally have to shove a blue like featureless model of the player character into the top right corner so that you can tell which, like, are you in the high stance or the medium stance or the low stance? Are you on your back? Are you climbing a wall? Like the POV mode conveys information so poorly that they have to shove the third person camera into the POV mode. And it's just,
Nice.
I feel like at some point someone should have said, okay, this POV mode is a really cool idea. It fits the idea thematic or the game thematically. We don't want to make the entire game in first person, but it would be cool to have an alternate mode. Let's bring it up to just below the minimum level of polish where we literally have to ship the entire third person view of the character inside of the first person view just to make it even playable. Should that have set somebody's alarm bells off and been like, maybe we just don't ship this mode since we didn't find a way to make it work?
You see, that really smacks to me though of like a team lead, an exec, somebody like that saying like, "Oh, I saw this in a video game. This is really cool. We should have this."
Yeah. Wouldn't it be cool if? And then it just never went all the way through development and polish.
Yeah, exactly. So then they were just kind of like, "Well, we have to add this," so they just added it in, and then it kind of did exactly what it was always going to do.
Yeah.
But that being said, I just bated breath, man. Did it hold up?
No, and so this is we've played a lot of games that I felt like didn't hold up. The thing that makes this game special in my heart of its total inability to hold up is I actually had a fairly decent time playing this game, and I know you didn't. And talking to you about it, now and like our little bit of stuff in like the pre-show and me literally having to clear stuff up for you to make the game even playable. Like I was like, wow, this is like the most aware of my nostalgia goggles I've ever been because I can see it's like you remember like trendy sunglasses that were like really small, like Matrix style, like really little frames where they don't protect your eyes at all. Like that's how I feel playing this game, and talking to anyone about it who didn't play it as like a 12-year-old is like, I can tell I'm looking at it through my rose-colored glasses, but I'm also perfectly aware of what it looks like without the glasses because the glasses are so small that I can see around it. And it's a weird feeling to be like, I know this is a pile of garbage. And even worse, as my games literacy and my understanding of game design has gotten so much better since I was a kid, I'm way more aware of all of its shortcomings than I certainly was then. But my nostalgia goggles, it's like a zero sum. Like, even though I know all the things that are wrong with it, I kind of still could have a good time. Like, I wish we had been able to, like you and I had been able to play this more two-player, because I did get to play the verses a little bit, but like I think I might have been able to like let you bask in my reflective glow a little bit if we, because you would have been like, Lions seems to be having an okay time. Maybe this game is okay, and like you would have gotten like a contact nostalgia goggles, but
or
I just
we would have revisited our ability to grapple one another, one or the other.
This is terrible. Stop making me play this.
Why?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I mean,
no, I think-
it's full nostalgia. I mean, just absolute full nostalgia goggles.
You know what it is? It's Dragon Ball Z, man. You know, where it's just like people ask me all the time, like they're like, you know, like, oh yeah, you know, like it's like something Dragon Ball Z. I'm like, oh man, I loved Dragon Ball Z as a kid. Like I watched it, you know, I like my friends and I would go into the pool and like pretend to power up and like wail on each other. It was amazing. It's like, should I check it out? Oh God, no, no. And I'll still go back and watch it and love it, you know. But it's like, should I check it out? No, man. It's unless you're 16 years old, don't bother. And that's why when people are like, have you checked out Dragon Ball Super? I'm like, well, it's either going to be just like Dragon Ball, or it's either going to be different than Dragon Ball, in which case it's not Dragon Ball, or it's going to be exactly the same, and I'm not 16 anymore. So no.
Well, and it's so like it's not my Dragon Ball, right? Like this isn't my Star Wars. This isn't my whatever, right? And that's I would love to know if there's a game in this genre that executes on this stuff well, because I don't play a ton of fighting games. So maybe there's tons of first person arena fighting games with freeform movement and a variety of combat styles that's like got a good hitbox, and I've just never heard of it. So I mean,
Kirby's Epic Yarn.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna go pick it up.
But, yeah. So so for me as well, I mean, obviously nostalgia goggles, and I felt bad because I literally was like going into this one, I was like, you know, Lions recommended it, you know, recommended we play it, and I think the last like 3 PlayStation games that we've done have been like, yeah, you need nostalgia goggles, and I'm like, I'm gonna give this one a good shake, and then like literally like 5 minutes in, I was like, this isn't looking good, man. We're going down.
So that's fair, but okay. So PlayStation games don't all shake out. I think, you know, you had your little foray with the guy with the gun. If you want to play a good PlayStation game that has a guy with a gun, we should play Metal Gear Solid.
Oh yeah, we should totally play Metal Gear, man.
We should play Metal Gear.
Sounds awesome.
Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear came out in like 1986 or something.
Yeah, no, we should. I agree completely. Metal Gear it is.
Metal Gear Solid?
Metal Gear.
The curtain falls. The music plays. The credits roll. Then it all fades to black. And you're left by yourself. The fanfare is gone. There's no player 2 there by your side to share victories won. But as you slowly progress down the hall to your bed, a few great events leak back into your head from the time that you spent traversing the land, battling evil, fighting the darkness, just sword in hand. Your memories creep in with the edge of a smile. You realize again what you lost for a while. You're gonna think back much less on how you saved the day than on all the experience gained. At the end of it all, gamers play what we play. Not for game over, but rather for
okay, everyone, don't tell Lions, but we are totally just going to play Metal Gear, not Metal Gear Solid. It's going to be hilarious, but shh, don't tell them. Big secret, big reveal.